Hey, all you recovering emo kids. Amanda and Rob here at the Emo Kids Anonymous
Hi.
podcast. And on today's episode, we are talking to Dan Rinaldi, who is a licensed mental health therapist. And Dan actually came to us from a friend of the pod, Lisa, from
Dear friend of the
Stereotherapy.
pod. I don't even want to call her a friend of the
Yes,
pod. Lisa, this is our sister podcast. These are,
sister
that is,
podcast.
you know what I mean? Like we ride or die together. Lisa, you guys have heard her on the show as well. I think one of our best episodes was with Lisa. And Lisa put this together for us because, pretty much it's a Lisa. This is we're kind of doing like a stereotherapy cosplay episode here where we're diving into mental health.
We
This isn't
are.
really our normal topic, but like it is very
Nope.
important in our world. And Daniel plays both angles where he was in a band, Bed Light for Blue Eyes, and he is now a licensed
Yeah.
therapist. So it's like perfect guy for the show.
Yeah, perfect guy. I know. I got my Bed Light CD over here. I got
You're
my
ready,
Bed Light
damn.
vinyl over here that I got,
Yeah.
on Smart Punk. I'm like, I'm ready. I'm ready for
No,
Dan's
yeah, he doesn't
interview.
even need to bill us. Yeah, you've already paid the copay for us. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure that is the made the copay.
Well, before we dive into
Yeah.
that, though, anyone watching this, please do us a favor, do yourself a favor so I can stop saying this because I don't like it. But follow us on the internet, the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube, all these, the TikToks. On this video here, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're listening on Spotify, you're listening on Apple Music, you're listening on something else weird we don't know about where they're uploading this bootleg style, do us a favor, subscribe, follow, hit the button, hit the like button, leave a comment, all that stuff. A little bit of engagement from you goes a long way. And, without you, there would just be us. So we want to say thank you. We love you, Modesto.
Yes. Exactly. And now, without further ado, let's talk to Dan. Hello, all you recovering emo kids. Amanda and Rob here at the Emo Kids Anonymous podcast. And today we are joined with Daniel Rinaldi. He is a licensed mental health counselor and also former singer of Bed Light for Blue Eyes. Hey, how are you doing, Dan? If you guys are familiar with the band, they were a emo band from the 2000s. You might have seen them on Warped Tour, perhaps, or on tour with bands like All Time Low, things like that back in the day. And he is going to talk to us about some mental health today and the scene. So, Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. So, just to kind of start us off, obviously, you used to be a part of the scene in a major way. So, for those who are not familiar with the band, give us a rundown of how you got started in the scene and your journey into the band and everything up until the point where you decided to get into mental health. What kind of led you to that journey?
So I had like a weird kind of intro into the scene. I didn't grow up in it. Where I grew up in New York, like in Queens, there really wasn't much of like an emo scene. There was like a hardcore scene, but I was more just kind of like running around being a theater kid.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then I had a bunch of friends that were like, hey, like, there's these shows that we go to. You should come with us. There's this band we think you'd like. Fast forward, I go to see Bed Light for Blue Eyes before I joined the band, and they were playing, funny enough, they were headlining a tour with My American Heart and Paramore at the time. And like Haley from Paramore was like, I want to say like 14 or 15.
Damn, Jesus,
Something crazy at that time. So I had seen them and like fell in love with Bed Light, then saw them again and was like totally on board. And then their singer left the band. And I was
one
like,
door closes, another one opens, they say.
Right?
Yeah.
I was heartbroken. I was like, oh my God, how the hell are they ever going to replace this guy? I hope they don't call it quits. And like one kind of like random night on MySpace, there was a bulletin that went out that was like, hey, we're not sure where this is going to go, but we're looking to audition singers. And at the time I was like fresh out of high school, freshman in college. I was 18 and kind of just was like, I don't know, but maybe I could do this. Yeah. So I happened to answer it back. Most of the band like kind of just like left me on red at like, as they would say today, not back in 2005, 6.
Yeah, we didn't have that. We didn't have those terms yet.
Yeah, we didn't have those terms yet. But the bassist James at the time just happened to kind of answer me back, asked me if I wanted to come out and audition. And, the rest was kind of history. I came out, auditioned, and got offered it like pretty much on the spot.
That's awesome.
And I kind of had to make a decision. Am I dropping out of college and going on tour with 4 other strangers? Or am I like, what am I doing here? Luckily, had super supportive parents, super supportive friends, and I took the chance and spent, pretty much 4 years of my life with that band, touring the country with some of the most amazing bands that I've ever had the pleasure to share the road with. And basically how that led to Therapist was when the band broke up, it was tough. It was hard. It was heartbreaking. I thought it was going to be my life. I thought it was going to be like one of those like, well, yeah, this is going to be the rest of my life. I'm going to get to play these songs, much like a lot of the bands we're seeing now, right? Like I'm going to get to be 40 years old playing these songs and it's going to be awesome. My story didn't end up that way, and that's fine. But I needed something that offered the same amount of connection.
Yes.
One of the biggest things that I always took away from the band was being able to connect with fans and other people and kind of listen to their stories of what the songs did for them, or, how they got to a show, how far they drove. And it was just like, I'm very driven by curiosity and a genuine just interest of people. And that's kind of what led me to kind of figure out what the heck I was going to do next. And that led to kind of like a push from my wife to be like, hey, go back to school.
Yeah.
See if you can do that. And lo and behold, that worked out, and I became a licensed mental health counselor.
Nice. Excellent. So I imagine like being a former theater kid, I know there's a lot of folks who are in bands who were former theater kids.
There's a pipeline.
Yeah.
Like someone,
There's
it's direct
definitely a
line almost,
pipeline. Do you feel like that helped you when you were auditioning for Bed Light and getting into that, that role of being lead singer?
Well, I'm probably like the only person who shows up to like a rock band signed to like Trustkill Records, famous for like Bleeding Through and all of these like life-changing hardcore bands, with a binder full of like lyrics and like tempo sheets and stuff like that in like protectors and stuff like that. So there I was with like they had a music stand and I kind of had it there. So I don't think like that happens too much. And that was the theater kid in me at that time. But I think it prepared me vocally as far as like stage, like how to navigate the stage and how to navigate that crowd at the time. Like a 2005, 6, 7 crowd was a lot different than I think the crowds that I kind of have seen now at shows and different things like that. Now it's a lot more phone. It's a lot more just like, we're going to chill and like kind of listen to our favorite band song. When you're playing 2006, like New Jersey venues, kind of the birthplace of a lot of different pop punk bands and stuff.
Maybe
there was like, there's a significant hunger there. So I had to figure out how to navigate that as the singer.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something about that. You mentioned you were originally from Jersey as well?
No, I'm originally from Queens, New York.
From Queens, that's right. Okay. Yeah. In general, that area is kind of seen as this like, Mecca almost, you want to say, where, I mean, like Southern California, we have tons here, Midwest, whatever, but that kind of area, there's a lot of these bands, especially through the 2000s. You see it starting with, the Thursdays, the Mike Hems, the canceled one, yada, yada, yada. Like, what is it about the area that makes this? I know with like New Jersey, I always, like I've heard Jack Antonoff and, Springsteen as well. There's like, we want to get the hell out of here. We can see the big world is like right outside our window. We can see the big city. Like we know something bigger exists beyond this. But like, I mean, in Queens, I mean, you're kind of in there,
Yeah, I think when it comes to like, when you think about, I mean, you can't talk about Jersey without talking about Drive Through, without talking about, Trustkill from like the hardcore perspective, and then Drive Through with, all of those bands that were coming up early November, Census Fail, I mean, you can name that whole roster. It was like insane at the time. I think for me, from my perspective, a lot of it was like, everyone was looking for a sense of community. Everyone was looking for a way to connect. It was kind of like, we don't we're kind of like, I don't want to use the word misfit, but like, I think that's really the only way to kind of describe it. It's kind of like all of the kids that kind of like flew under the radar and needed an outlet, and that outlet was provided to them. And then it allowed every person in the scene, there was just an accessibility there. And, when you talk about Jersey and all of the venues that are there, and then you talk about New York with, like, at that time, CBGBs and the Continental were still huge. The Knitting Factory was still huge. Webster, Studio at Webster, all of those venues were huge. And then you had all the Jersey venues, including like Asbury, along with like Hamilton Street Cafe. Maxwell's was like a big one. So I think it was just like this sense of belonging. And I also agree with people like Jack and people like, Bruce Springsteen, where there is this sense of like, man, the bright city lights are right there for us. Like, how do we not follow the same thing that we see our peers follow, like becoming the garbage?
How do we not let the dream die and just end up staying in this hometown that we want to escape from so badly?
Right. Like, how do we not become the person that you see at the local grocery store? And you're like, man, that's what he's doing. It was kind of this hunger to kind of get out there. And I think at that time there was like, it was like road warriors. Like, everyone was out on the road. There wasn't a time where you couldn't go to a truck stop and there wasn't like 3 other bands pulling in at the same time trying to chase the same thing.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your journey into mental health. So you went to school for it. You decided to move that direction. And obviously, when I've read like on your website, et cetera, you talk a lot about, when you're a musician and how being a musician, a lot of musicians lack the resources. And we all know the story of emo music. We all know many of our, favorite band members suffer from many different things going on mental health wise. You have the Fall Out Boy behind you. We all know of Pete Wentz's stories of, that have created amazing lyrics and things that people connect with, but also the demons and things that he had suffered with. So when you were deciding to go through that journey and build your, business and what you were going to really focus on, it seems like your focus is on the musicians and helping them seek the proper mental health. So did you experience that in your own journey as musician? Like, were you struggling as well, or kind of what made you decide to take that route in particular? Because you could have taken any route in focus, I guess. So what made you want to go that route?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for me, the musician touring crew kind of has come later. I kind of have always, and it's probably through my own anxieties and stuff like that, I've always chased all sorts of different like areas of study and business and things like that, trying to find the right thing to hit on. And the thing that I always kind of didn't touch upon was music, and didn't go after was music. And it seems like a no-brainer and the most natural thing, but part of me was like, why haven't I done this before? To definitely answer your first question, I mean, I definitely had struggled with anxiety, and definitely after the band, definitely depression type stuff. And I think everyone did, especially, in the 2000s, there were no resources for bands. There was no such thing as resources. There was To Write Love on Our Arms was, gaining steam.
Yeah.
There were a couple other companies gaining steam, but they really weren't built towards the people in the band. And there was a huge stigma. It's been a huge stigma, like it's always been, I'm going to say, unfortunately, it's always been a boys game. It's always been kind of this boys club, manly man, and we've seen that take, we could go off on a tangent about how that's gone. That's gone real.
I think there should be more male loneliness. Yeah. No. we need to amp it up, fellas.
Yeah.
You love this. Yeah.
But that leads into like that toxic masculinity and not knowing how to navigate certain things, and there not being really a safe way to navigate the scene for fans. There was no, there was no policing of the scene sounds silly, but like, there was,
There really wasn't. Yeah.
like Warped Tour was the Wild West. Most shows were the Wild West. Bamboozle was the Wild West. Like all these things were the Wild West, and you were basically allowed to kind of do whatever you want. So like there was significant mental health issues, and now, now it's like, there's part of me that goes like, oh, great, now we're all talking about it, but what are we actually doing about it, right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing, and that's where like my kind of like leaning into the creative and leading into the tour crews and, artists is kind of like, there's a lot of companies out there, great companies, right? But a lot of them act as middlemen and expect the artist to go chase them down, right? I get what it's like to be the artist. I get what it's like to be on the mental health side. And I'm not afraid to reach my hand out there and say, hey, I'm here. I get it. I understand it. You don't have to explain it to me. Now let's talk about it. Right. And I think that's where I'm kind of seeing the difference and how it's kind of going more in a positive way is, getting comments like, oh man, I just don't have to explain the life to you. And that's awesome. Like,
Yes.
you get it. You don't think I'm silly for chasing this dream. I did it. I get it. I get what it's like to do that. I get what it's like to have no one understand it. But I also get on the flip side of how to help you navigate that and how to help you kind of steer yourself in and out of that place to where when you're home, you can feel good. When you're on the road, you can feel good. And all the in-between stuff you can work on as well, that maybe you are partying a little too much. Maybe you are towing the line on other things. And we're going to talk about it. And my approach to it is a very real way, like I want to confront you about certain things and I want to talk to you about it. And that's the only way to do it is to talk about it. And that's what we haven't done is talk about it. We've always just kind of like swept it under the rug and pretended it wasn't there as long as the bottom line was getting hit.
Yeah.
Let
As long
me
as
let
it's
me
coming
ask you.
through in the
Yeah.
lyrics, I guess that's okay, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a two-part question for you, Daniel. The first one is nice and good, and the second one's going to be a little bad. The first part is, I think in general in our world, I think before this, okay, rock bands are angry, grunge is angry, but anger is an iceberg emotion, you know? I think our scene was really the first one that really dove into, at least on a mainstream level. Because, we're talking in 2000s. I'd say, obviously the point of our podcast is I think this was the main cultural movement. This was the mainstream to a degree. I mean, we're still the weird kids, but this is the mainstream. That being said, I think overall for a genre built around, so much depression and agony and misery and yearning and isolate and things like that, I think for the most part, our scene in terms of the band members, and this is, very, it's, almost morbid, but it's like there's been a incredible lack of, suicides and terrible mental health, like people falling apart and shit like that in our genre, as opposed to other genres. You know what I mean? We've seen more of the grunge guys, the rock guys, where they got like this or that, and in our world, a lot of these damaged kids who are saying about cutting their wrist black in their eyes are now happily adjusted, great adults. Do you see, there's a bad part coming on the question after this. So yeah, the first part is just, do you think maybe the openness of this and the way it was discussed so freely and the vulnerability maybe led to that? Like what?
I think community leads to that, right? Finding your people, right? Like I think in a lot of ways from a fan perspective, being able to find your people is really important. Not because once alone now isn't lonely, right?
You're saying misery loves company?
Yeah, right.
Shout out, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus.
Yeah. And with community and connection, you become hopeful, right?
Yes.
And what hope does is it builds curiosity, right? So that curiosity makes you stay for one more day, right? That curiosity makes you not make the bad decision or the decision that's not going to have a great outcome happen because you're going, I wonder what it's like to stay
kind of interested in the next day. Yeah, you're kind of you have a reason to stay, and I think the community is a big part too. And like I think we mentioned toxic masculinity earlier. I say about myself. One thing I'll say is like I think I'm the least toxic. Like I'm girly as fuck. You know what I mean? We grew up in a world where there was like gender bendy and this androgyny thing where it's like I don't think toxic masculinity totally existed in our scene the same way. Would you agree?
I think it existed in different ways.
Oh, part two's coming. Don't worry.
I think the power dynamic is where we saw it, right? Where we saw, really popular people take advantage of their positions. And I think that's where we saw some toxic stuff. And because it's a boys club,
Nothing would happen.
You turn the male, you kind of put it on their feet and say it's your issue, right? Because they're the only ones there. So I think like it existed in that way, not what we kind of know it as it is now. But I think from
more of a Mad Men bullshit way, as opposed to
more of like
toughen up,
like
pussy.
Where right, and also like we're lead singers, we're guitarists, we're your favorite band. Come look at us. It was too much. It was too much power.
Too much power, yes.
Given to emotionally immature people.
That was going to be my second question.
Under 25, yeah.
Yeah, in our world as well. Obviously, for all this good, there's also a lot of bad, and hurt people, and it's been a large thing where this has kind of taken over our scene at certain times, where it's like these guys have been terrible and abuse this position of power. So there's still kind of exists there. And I mean, do you think maybe the mental health aspects of things like that were able to allow these bands to create this level of vulnerability with their fans more so in our genre than others? Or do you think this is just typical power play rock star bullshit?
I think it's both. I think it's typical bullshit, but I also think there's a lot to be said for being like the tortured lead singer, or like the
mysterious guitarist, yes.
Or the bassist, or the merch guy.
That's a good nickname, yeah.
So I think there's a lot that was at play from the aspect of like, I'm going to use this, but then also I'm also going to weaponize this to then know that my fans are hurting, or my fans are this or that. And now I'm going to know that she's the anxious girl, or he's the depressed guy, because we don't hear as much, but I'm sure there were plenty of other people who haven't spoke about things that are around and have dealt with that. So I think like that was also, the mental health was also used as a weapon to say, come here, depressed person, come here, anxious person.
I understand you, yes.
Come here, lonely kid. Like, and we've seen those text messages, those stories, those.
There's an extra level of emotional and psychological coercion compared to like a Steven Tyler, hey, come on my tour bus. I don't care if you're middle school. There's it's not the same as that. There's a level of psychological terror with it.
Yeah, from what we've seen, we can probably pull, like if we really pulled right now and said, let's look through this and see where the psychological stuff is. I'm sure there's plenty of it, right? That's why it's always a 20-something, 30-something-year-old guy and a 15-year-old girl, right? Because there's a level of manipulation there. There's so many levels that are there that are preyed upon from that aspect. So I think like the mental health was definitely a factor.
Yeah. So
as a therapist, do you think that sorry, man. Do you think like these people making these decisions, poor behavior and things like that, I mean, as a mental health professional, these are, do you if you had a client that was in one of these bands or something like these, you see these things that are rehabilitable, or is this, people are going to be some people are just monsters? Like, how much of it is that? How much of it is hurt people, I'm lashing out, but I can be fixed? Because that's the big thing. The guys get canceled and then they go to therapy, and a lot of people see it as like it gets the bullshit pass, but it is, that is something they should be doing.
So I'm going to be 100%. This is more the human side of me, as opposed to therapy. This is me from the outside looking in as just a bystander. Sure, going to therapy is great, wonderful. We all should do it. All of our parents should do it. Everyone should do it. Therapists aren't fixers. We're not, and I'll say this till I'll die on this hill. We are just people who got a different degree than the next person, right? We're not magicians. We're not these like insane, like we just know about a subject.
This thing, we know this subject
more than somebody else. So the thought process that someone can come in and get fixed is to me non-existent. Can we work through things, and can we work to maybe decrease certain things? Sure. Do I think that there are people out there that need a higher level of care when they're exhibiting certain things? Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're a 30, 40-year-old guy that's preying on children, you might need a higher level of care than me.
Yeah.
Chances are, if you come to me and that is like a huge part of what you need, chances are I'm going to refer you out to something that's a higher level of care than I am. And that's not to say that I couldn't work with you. It's just that you need to go and fix that, just like you would with rehab or anything
Or a
like
drug
that.
addict. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was going to
With a
say
drug,
there's a
yeah, with
level of,
addiction.
you need some inpatient care or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Go away and get yourself, get yourself right. You talk to the right people, be exposed to certain things, understand really what's at the core of what you're doing, so that you can then say, damn, I either have this problem that I'm going to recognize, or I'm not recognizing it, and that's the bigger issue. So I think, like, I don't know. I don't know if there's a space where it's like, like you said, there's an accusation, we go away for 3 months,
You
6 months.
find God, you go to
Or
therapy.
3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, we come back
7.
and we come back because we need money, and and that's the thing. But like, I certainly don't forget. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
certainly don't sit there and go and pretend that those things don't happen. So I think I even go as far as, like, I'm not even gonna let your songs come on my shuffle anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I'm that person. Like, I'm not gonna let, Jude Law come on, or something
Same
like
way.
that, and be like,
Yeah.
sick, this is great, or like, yeah, like, let's listen to that song. Like, I'm good. There's plenty of other music out there.
Yeah. No, exactly right. And it's interesting because a lot of people always use that. And as someone who's been through different variations of therapy myself, I know that it takes, you could go, the best, even the best just therapist isn't going to necessarily solve everything. It's up to you at the end of the day. And even you can backtrack and go through. And it never is like 100% like whatever, even if it's like the mild, like getting over how you talk about yourself in your head, right?
Right.
And a lot of band members, it's like dealing with the loneliness on the road and things like that. That's what, that may be something that they're struggling with that they need to talk through, but something that's a little bit more serious, like it's addiction or talking to underage girls or doing other things with underage.
It's been
So
weird that girls or and people in
yes,
general, girls, boys, yeah, just
yes,
treating
yeah,
treating people
that's a
poorly.
little bit,
Yeah.
not something that you can just easily
Yeah,
fix
I
with
think it's a
some talking.
I think it's a bigger system issue as well, right? Like, that's where, like, a label, a booking agent, and a manager should come into play. And
Yep,
that's
I
what
agree with
doesn't
that.
happen, right? Like, it kind
Yes.
of just kind of go, well, yeah, he's going to do his thing. And that's that. And then they come back and everyone's happy because they're making money
So
again.
did the thing. You did the thing. Okay, we're clear. Yeah, it's almost like checking off a box as opposed to like, brother, are you okay? You
Yeah.
know.
And I can't
Yeah.
even imagine what it's like for victims, right? To, like, then be like, oh wow, you're back, holy shit. Now, like, like, people that have to see it now with algorithms and things like that, oh great, now it's all over my For You page. Or
Yeah,
Yep.
no, yeah, the doom scrolling turns into groom scrolling all of a sudden. Yeah, and
yeah,
you're like, Jesus Christ, yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're
All
getting
over again.
you're reintroducing yourself again to all of that pain, all of those things that went on, whether, and again, like, I'm no, I don't claim to be any sort of expert, right?
Hmm.
I'm just a person. And, I can't imagine, what that's like for anybody, kind of like having to, like, relive that, and having to see that, and having to see this person, like, go and prosper in the thing that they in
The
turn
thing
took
they
away
use
from
to
that.
fucking hurt you, yeah, literally
Right.
hurt
And
you.
what they essentially took away from you, right? Like, they took away that innocence of what the scene is, right? That family, that connection of what the scene is. They,
They violated you inside your home, essentially. Like you found
yeah,
this place that was your safe space, and that safe space wasn't safe for you. And then
yeah,
10 years, 5 years, 6, whatever years later, this band pops up again or something. and it's, you just see people praising them and things like that. Like I really, like, I mean, yeah, it's very difficult for them. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. I'm sure same thing for you when you see people just like, you know, like I won't talk about, you know, brand new on my page anymore, because like, not that I don't think discourse, whatever, this or that, but it's like I didn't like seeing the amount of people coming in and defending it so blindly, almost like Donald Trumpian. And then it's like one of the girls that made like she reached out to us, one of the girls, and just like it's
Good.
like, so these are real people. They see what you guys are saying. You know what I mean? It's like that's got to be just so
100%.
fucking
And
gnarly.
100%. And there's such like a venom that comes with like the blind support. You know,
Yeah.
recently seeing it with like 30 Seconds to Mars now, you know,
Yeah, the
all
Jared Leto
Shouldn't have been
stuff,
supporting
yeah.
them in the first place. Yeah.
right.
I
And
agree with that, yeah.
there's always been like weird, like I'm not down for like the weird like weekend getaways. Like that stuff is like very, I watch too many like Netflix
Yeah.
cult
Yeah.
documentaries.
You're like, I know. Yeah, no, that dude's a cult.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
Real.
same.
I know what that is. Like, I
Yeah,
know what that
yes.
is.
I
But like
mean,
any one of those bands, you know, yeah, it's just like, it's wild.
no, yeah. There's a lot of them out there, and it's interesting because, you know, we're talking about mental health here and it's part of the scene. I mean, I think that, you know, as our scene has developed, I mean, obviously we're talking about the bands and their mental health, but also the fans too. And now that we're in 2025 and now the internet is now the prevailing culture and how we get most of our information and how everyone communicates, I imagine that, I mean, do you see it different for fans of this type of music as being like where they're online constantly? And is that affecting their mental health in any way, shape, or form differently than when they were in 2005? And we
God,
were really
yeah.
online, like we were like out there listening to the music, but we were not constantly online. And it was different the way we were experiencing the music, right? We're not
Yeah.
watching people's videos constantly doom scrolling sad lyrics and sad videos of people. Like how does that affect it? Like, do you see that?
I think it's twofold. I think,
Yeah.
you know, back in the day, there was, I think it was, again, it was a Wild West. It was for me, from my perspective, it was a scarier place, right? It was screaming into Tumblr and putting
It's
your
true.
potential like note, you know, your end of life
Yes.
note on Tumblr, right? And, you know, having people like
Maybe
cheer you
find it,
on, like,
or cheer you
yeah,
on.
or
Yeah.
maybe find it, or like kind of just like, you know, putting, that's, you know, we've seen some stories come out of that where it's like, this is who I was actually speaking about back then, you know, on those things in MySpace. It was a different kind of thing. I do think, you know, if you're online a lot and you're just getting it pumped into your face the whole time, it's hard. Like it can't be easy for people who are struggling to, you know, have the struggle basically thrown at you, and kind of almost like, it's almost like someone just like kind of like sitting there just poking at
Fucking
you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I see that a lot with a lot of the younger fans of, well, Fall Out Boy, because that's the band I'm perpetually online with.
Ex-Fall Out Boy,
And
yeah.
on like, yeah, I might be a little bit. On like Twitter and stuff. And I see these younger fans and they talk about, you know, how Fall Out Boy saved their lives, but also they're all constantly tweeting about just how sad they are. Things are, and it's like, you know, clearly they have stuff going on and they need to talk to someone. Maybe not Twitter, maybe not,
Yeah, maybe a professional, maybe, yeah.
yeah, maybe a professional. And I'm like, is that helpful? Like, that's like, I mean,
Yeah, I don't
being
think
helpful.
I don't think throwing it out there to Twitter is a good move, because there's
Yeah.
so many people on there that their whole life is based around like being a troll. And
That's, yes, yeah,
again, like utilizing your pain to hurt you even
yeah,
further. Here's one thing, like this is another hill I'll die on. For anyone who says that a band saved their life or a band did something for them, I want them to know that you did that. The band is just a background
yeah,
thing that
Yeah.
is in your existence. You are the one who stayed here, who survived, who did everything they could. Whether you're listening to the music or not, you stayed, right? Like,
Yes.
and if you're listening to that song and you decided to not harm yourself, whatever it might be that you're going through, drugs, alcohol, you are the one who made the decision. And
Yes.
I've dealt with that my whole career, where I've gotten emails and I still have them saved because they were important moments in my life.
Yeah.
But my answer back was always like, you are the one who turned the car around. You are the one that did that. I didn't, just because I sang about this didn't mean anything to the fact that you had the strength. This weird thing.
I didn't know how you did that.
You should see what that's like when you're in a therapy session and a thumbs up comes by while someone's crying.
Yeah.
It's bad news. Or
Sorry
fireworks.
about your dad. Yeah.
Like fireworks happen and you're like, tell me more about your trauma.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like, that's another thing I always like to reiterate when it comes up. It's like, you know, we can love bands and like connect with their story, but so much of the work that gets put in is the person that's going through it, and the band just happened to kind of be the thing that was there.
Like you said about therapists, you're not a fixer. The band's not a fixer either. They're just a different people with a different job.
You're right.
I've had moments where I've listened to music and it's helped me along the way, but you know, I'm essentially the one who chose, you know, to kind of like calm the anxiety and instead of staying in bed, I decided to get out of it, right? Like, same thing, be curious, have hope, right? Like, those are all things that I think the music lends itself to, but essentially you are the person that's making that decision.
Do you have any particular like stances or like any particular theories that really resonate with you, that are your go-to in terms of when you're talking to your clients? Certain I guess is that you typically utilize, like cognitive behavioral therapy or anything like that? Like, are there certain things that you really focus on in terms of that and that line of thinking? Or
so there's obviously like any other person that went to school, I utilize things that were taught to me and things that I've studied. CBT, DBT are some of them, you know, utilizing mindfulness and, you know, more person-centered approaches. Here's what I'll say about that, and I think this is kind of the newer school of therapists that are coming up, is I want my client or someone who's potentially going to work with me to be the expert of them, right? I don't know you. I have no idea what's going on. You're essentially the person driving the car. I'm the person that's going, have you tried going left? Have you tried going right?
Yeah.
Maybe, what if you stopped here? You know, why don't you turn around? Have you ever tried I've turned around once and it was really good for me. Have you ever tried it? There we go. Again, I'm given some sort of speech bubble. And I think, you know, a lot of times I don't want to force the client into what I want out of it. I want the client to get what they want out of it. So to tell you, sure, I have all of these skills and I have all these things that I utilize, but the client doesn't necessarily know if I'm utilizing them, when I'm utilizing them.
No.
It's basically sometimes just a way to get from point A to point B. In the reality, I want to be able to adapt to what they're doing rather than have them adapt to me, because then is it my session or their session? Mm-hmm. Is it me flexing this muscle, or is it me like really listening and taking it in and being really intentional with what is going to happen next and being super present, so that I'm not already thinking like, well, in CBT they utilize this, so if this happens, I'm going to go to this and I'm going to go to that. It's like, no, I'm going to let you get it out and then we're going to go from there. And sometimes the best approach is being a genuine human that sits across from someone and is able to listen to them, see them, and then respond accordingly.
Yeah. Now, when you're with your clients, are you usually doing this virtually, or how do you typically work?
Since the pandemic, I'm completely virtual.
I got you. Well, that makes it kind of like...
I used to see clients, and now it just kind of happened that way where it's just virtual. I think it makes therapy a lot more accessible for a
Yeah.
lot of
Yes.
people that don't want to necessarily go into a gross, sterile office environment, and they just kind of like chilling on the couch with their favorite food, and their dog is on their lap, and we're just having a conversation.
You mentioned accessibility there, and just I think our generation, people in general, the time frame now, people are more accepting of therapy and things like that, but it can be like a daunting start point. Like let me, for example, I have my daughter's mother is a LMFT,
Okay. Yep.
and for lack of better terms, suffers from the disease of irrationality sometimes, and like it's difficult. So like it's kind of like and the coworkers, I kind of in my head was like, well, I'm never going to therapy. You guys are fucking crazy, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like things like that, and it's like, well, no, these are things that people should be doing, but it's like you have a like I have a bad taste in my mouth about it. I think other people have a fear about it, the vulnerability. There's also like the scariness of the grown-upness of the insurance, things like that. Like how do I dive in? So like if someone's listening to this and maybe they haven't gone to therapy or they did before and they had a bad experience, how would you recommend someone going, not just finding, because it's easy to find a therapist. So I mean, you can do it right on your phone, you can do a ZocDoc, you can do all the BetterHelp shit or whatever, but like how do people find a therapist that really fits them? You know what I mean? Because it's almost kind of like dating to a degree, I imagine.
It is. It really is. I suggest anyone and everyone to kind of really do your research and really find someone who speaks to you. Find the people that give 15-minute free consults. I always do vibe checks. Like and me as well, right? Like a thing that people don't talk about is I might also say that I'm not the right therapist for you and make that decision and be like, oof, I'm not well educated in this area. You might need to go to so and so or talk to so and so. I mean, that's like sometimes a hard pill to swallow for therapists to be like, I don't know it all. But like there are areas that we don't know. You wouldn't hire a painter to do your electrical, right? Like it's things like that. I would suggest to anyone that's had like a bad taste in their mouth or hasn't necessarily found the right therapist to kind of like, a lot of the search engines, you could really get specific with filters and you could really find people that are saying the right words and saying the right things for you. So I would always suggest like keep looking. If you think you've maxed out, there's always that next person that might be the perfect fit for you. And another thing, it costs a lot of money. One thing I'll always say is there are sites like OpenPath is one.
Okay.
And there are therapists that have pro bono clients that give discounted prices, all sorts of stuff like that. Like one of my biggest things was for Artisan Tour Crew, I significantly discounted my price because I know how much it sucks for them. And I know that it's a struggle and I want them to come into therapy. I want them to come in to talk and not have price be a barrier. So I've tried to do things like that, and there are other therapists out there that do offer lower costs. So, but you don't know that the resources exist. Google's your friend. All of these things are your friend. Type in exactly what you're looking for, and chances are you'll find it, or reach out. Like, I'm completely accessible. I might not be the person that can help you, but I sure as hell can find the resource for you.
Yeah,
I have
exactly.
no problem with people reaching out to me on any of my socials or my email or anything like that. Like, I've had such a hard time finding therapy, like, or finding someone that gets it. Sure. Like, let me help you. Let me try and figure out something for you. So, don't hesitate to reach out. Like, not everyone is like the 1.5 million follower, like mental health influencer that's not going to answer you back. Most of us will answer you back. Like, I know that most people who message me are going to get an answer back probably within like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about bands and significantly discounting their rates. 'Cause I think about a lot of the young bands we've interviewed on here recently, and for them, a lot of them still have part-time jobs. They're still doing this is not their full-time job. Their full-time job is something else. I think the band we just interviewed, Social Ghost, one of their guys is a lawyer. That's his full-time job, right?
Good for him.
Good for him. So
Moonlighting in the courtroom,
right? So he
Yeah.
said like, but
He might be
obviously
able
that's
to
a lot.
afford. He might be able to afford the
He
full
could
rate. I
probably
mean, maybe you
afford
could
a
charge the
proper.
lower the full fucking rate. Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
also not
he
signing any
charged it.
shitty contracts either.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
also
yeah, yeah.
true.
He's
Yeah.
might take care of himself decently well. Smart to have a lawyer in your band,
Exactly.
actually. That's a good angle.
Yeah, it's a good angle. But for those folks, I mean, especially with in this day and age where you're not really making money off of streaming, and now you have the compounded addition of needing to be online all the time. So another thing we talk about with our bands that we've been interviewing that are younger is that constant need to be posting on social media, the TikToks, like that has to be very daunting for those bands, I
yeah.
imagine, like mentally, like, oh, I'm not good enough. I can't make the right content to get someone to listen to my band when before it was just show up to that
Yeah.
VFW and play the show and
Yeah.
then like, right? Like that has to be like I can imagine for a lot of bands now it would be mentally more difficult maybe because there's infinitely more people and now I was just watching John Oliver and they're talking about AI and how the AI music is just everywhere. Like now you can just people can just make AI music. And it's like now they're fighting a computer. They're
Yeah.
fighting compounding like social media. Like I can imagine that's very stressful for someone who's an artist.
Yeah, I think it's super stressful. One suggestion I would always have for
Yeah.
younger bands
Don't read the
is,
comments.
well,
Oh,
don't read the comments, but also like try and stay away from the pressures and make something special. People are going to respond. You're going to like there's so much to say about like post fatigue and all of that stuff. Like when you post too much, like sometimes your fans get tired of it or they don't want to see it or whatever. Like find the ways to make things special and make things unique. One of my favorite artists, he's a solo artist, but he's also a phenomenal songwriter, John Bellion, who's like
I'm
written
telling you,
like,
yeah.
yeah, a million hits for everybody, but also just put out his, his first record in 6 years because he didn't want to be the poster and he didn't want to, he was trying to get his masters back. But everything he's doing now is so unique. And like, he just blasts things out to his email list. And instead of connecting to maybe, 500 people on Instagram because the algorithm didn't give a crap that day, he's connecting to his 100,000 directly to 100,000 people that he talks to directly through email because he made it like an old school like Windows
Sick.
looking like type thing, and he's giving you his music like a day before it's coming out, sort of thing. If you're subscribed to it, find something that's going to make you make your base feel special, feel unique. And that's what we were doing when we didn't have all these other resources. We were trying to find the things that made it unique for our fans and made it special, whether it was that the van doors wide open playing acoustic, a song we didn't play, off the album for maybe 50 fans. That built a better connection, a more special connection than if we did that every single night, posted it on MySpace, and it was there and it was accessible, it was on YouTube. So it's like sometimes those pressures are there because everyone else, obviously, like peer pressure, all the other bands are doing it, and there's such a race to be that band that hits on TikTok, because that's where we're seeing so many of these bands sometimes come from, or some of these kind of mid-tier bands get their song put on there, and then all of a sudden they're opening for Metallica, and you're like,
yeah.
how the heck did this happen? So it's one of those things where it's like, just find what makes you people unique,
Yeah.
and give them
Exactly.
something special. Maybe it's a freaking painting that you did, or maybe it's like, I don't know what it could be, but like something.
This is, I think, yeah, like I said, every band we've talked to for the most part has complained about this, where it's just like, there's like a fatigue to it. Even, I mean, I know, we're friends with Lisa at Stereotherapy, and we have a group, and even people in our group, like, there's like, I'm weird. I don't ever get this. I'm an animal. Like, I'm so extrovert, but
You're the
every
content
single one of
machine.
them is like I can't pose. Like I need to take a few days, this or that. And it's like that is very important. Like we had a friend of ours who is no longer our friend. He's a weasel. He ended up being a bagger. But like there's a whole thing where it's like, oh, and I'd be like, brother, just take a break for a few days. Like I'm not gonna do that. I don't need to. But by the sounds of it, if this is causing you problems, fucking stop. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
3
Mental health
days, like, oh,
problems.
this,
Man.
and things go so fast on your phone that you feel like there's like a constant forever FOMO thing happening. You know what I mean? But it's like,
Yes.
this doesn't matter. You can chill. Even as a bit, oh, I gotta get this song out. It's like, you can chill 6 months. The ears are going to be there.
Quality
Relax.
over
Take care of
quantity.
yourself.
Quality
Yes.
over quantity. Exactly.
Quality over quantity. I know I get I like the weasel drop, and I totally know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
I was part of
He's
the
probably
weaselly.
He's lurking somewhere.
So if you're listening, don't be a weasel.
I'll be a fucking weasel.
Yeah, I think it just, if people give a crap, they're gonna give a crap whether you're there every day or you take a day off to be a human,
Yeah.
right?
You don't need to be
Like
serving them. You don't need to be their constant. Yeah. Their jester.
like your core people are going to be there for you whether you do that, and they're going to understand that you needed those 3 days to be with their
Yeah.
family, as opposed to like posting. Like there's plenty of times where like, you know, I'll post at like 10 o'clock at night because like I was just sitting watching TV and was like, oh, that seems like something that I'd like to post. But I hadn't posted all day because I was like in the pool with my daughter, right? Like, or
Happens to me.
like out walking around with my wife and my kid, you know? So it's like, you know, it, yeah, just be a human. People are going to respond. The more human you are and the more they feel like they can connect to you on that level,
Yeah.
they're going to respond to that better, and they're going to be there to support you, as opposed to like the people who followed you because you just happened to put the right hashtag there, and they're not really there for
They're
the
not really
mental
invested.
health.
They're not invested
Right.
in
No.
you.
They're not there for
They're
the mental
not.
health content. Like maybe they like this, and then they're going to unfollow you anyway in 2 months. So like,
Yeah.
stop trying to go cater to that base, but
No.
cater to that base that like the 50 people that liked your thing, as opposed to like, yeah, cool, I got 1,000 likes, but like it's some dude in Arkansas who like doesn't give a shit about mental health.
Yeah, that guy in Arkansas.
And I think also, like we talked about the bands and just this experience, social media stuff came up roughly the same time, in the sense that, okay, in the 2000s, we're playing a show. When you're going to hand your demo to someone, they weren't walking by and saying like, fuck you, this is terrible. You know what I mean? Like things,
No,
they're
they're
just,
not gonna do
I
that.
don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. You know, like
gonna
for the
send-
most part,
yeah.
MySpace, same thing. Maybe they were like, oh, neat, a new band or something, but very rarely were people like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. You should not be, you
Now,
know. But now it's
yeah.
like, yeah, you start seeing this ease of just being
People
able
don't
to be
care.
not even trolls, just like rotten, deplorable fucking ways to talk to
It
people.
has to be
And
difficult.
it's
to
got
put
aware,
yourself
because
out
I don't think bands in the past had to deal with that in the same way.
there.
The
No.
only time they had to deal with it was on Absolute Punk. That was
Yeah.
really
Which
the
is-
only play.
I was one of the ones on Absolute Punk giving them shit. Okay, yeah,
Rob was one of those people.
yeah. Took
Yeah,
pride.
like those were the times, or like if you were on, like you'd get like bad comments on like Pure Volume, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
where someone
But
was
even
like
then, that was
doing
so
that.
much rarer too. Yeah, it wasn't the same. Yeah.
And here's what I'll say to that: like most of the time, those people like now that are posting those things, number one, half of them don't, like, if you really know about these certain things, some of them don't, some of these like people commenting don't even really exist. Like they are
Yeah.
literally bots that are built to do that,
To be dickheads, yes.
like to do certain things, whether it be you know, X or TikTok or whatever it is. So it's like one of those things where it's like, you know, if you like what you post, if you like what you're putting out, that's all that matters. Do it for you first, right? You have to do it for you before you do it for other people. One of my biggest struggles with, like, you know, if I ever wanted to put music out again was like, you know, my wife telling me like, what if you just tried to do it for you instead of trying to do it for like all these people that you think
This
you
this
need
process, this thing you need to do. You're like,
Right.
well, this is how you be in a band. I do this, I do that. It's
Right.
like you're not doing
'Cause
that for yourself.
if you're only answering to yourself in that way, then like the comments don't matter. The noise doesn't matter. It's you against you at that point. And most of the time you could say, "Ah, man, I really like this. I'm going to throw it out there." And if people dig it, they dig it, but I dig it. So that's
I mean,
what matters.
There's I mean, you know, all, you know, very dated terminology, but you know, there's 100 channels on, you know, you're not going to like everything on every channel. Just keep moving. I think the
Sure.
people
Yeah.
that are leaving those negative comments on something, I don't really get them at all. It's like a weird thing in our group where it's like, oh, everyone's really nice to Rob. They're terrible to the girls. But like, when I get negative comments like that, it's like, it's always from someone that doesn't have a profile photo or anything like that. And I see that in my thought, and like back then I'd respond like, you know, because it's like, these are people that are hurting. if you're just lashing out at strangers on the internet from an anonymous profile, like, yes, like there's something wrong with you. Because I mean, my late teens, early 20s, I probably would have maybe been the same way. Yeah, like, oh, fucking talking shit or something like that. It's like, there's something wrong with you. Like, I want you to feel better. That's this lashing out thing that they're doing. And if anything, I don't know, it almost might be a good thing because it's easier for people to lash out in a minor way as opposed to lashing out in major ways. But like,
True.
it's just, it's a lot of hurt people just trying to hurt other people for the fuck of it, and it's,
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly right. Yeah.
I just don't know what you
But
do. People I almost have as much empathy for them as I do for the bands or the artists or the creators
Yeah.
that are getting the terrible comments, because it's like, brother, who
Yeah.
hurts you? It wasn't it wasn't the guy dancing and lip syncing to the song. Like, something actually is bothering you. Like, do you want to talk?
yeah, why is that
You
guy
said him to
lip-syncing
you.
to-
Yeah. You can, yeah, right. Like, why are you so upset about this? Yeah, none of this matters. It's
Yeah.
the internet.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think that's why these younger bands even more so need someone like to talk to, or maybe someone to help them put things into perspective sometimes, almost. Yeah, exactly.
100%, because there's not a whole lot of that goes on. So it's like, hopefully they get it. Hey, if you're a young band and you're listening, you don't have, and I say this all the time, like, you don't have to be a client to reach out. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have to, like, this isn't about like a big money grab or anything. This is literally like, if you're a band or you're someone that's like curious, or you're like, you have a question, costs you nothing to ask that question. Please, I'd rather you ask that question and get an answer from a different perspective than like go and get it from somewhere that doesn't have like your best interest there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. Now I gotta ask, Dan, this is kind of like a nerdy question, but whenever you're like in a session and you're talking to a client or client's talking to you, do like your lyrics ever sometime like come up in your head when like something like just
Or
triggers
drop your
them,
own
or like
line on them.
you're like, wait, that makes me think of something, like, because it like I
You
don't
mean
know.
besides this shameless self-promotion?
Yeah, besides
there you
the
go.
shameless
Yeah, it's nice in
because
there.
it would for me. Sometimes someone might say something, I'm like, wait a minute. Like, you know how they say something in like conversation, I just like, wait a minute.
100%. I'd be lying if I didn't say like, not even just my own stuff, but even just like
Yeah.
other things where you're just like sitting there, or you want to like, give somebody like that like lyric where you're
Yeah.
like, this fits really well. And most of the time to kind of go to your faves, right? Like, most of the time it exists in like a Fall Out Boy title, right?
Yes,
Where
this is
it's
true.
like, or
I feel
some
like you
sort
can
of
do full
lyric.
sessions just based off Fall Out Boy. Yeah.
There's not too many people better than Mr. Wentz at
This is
lyric
true.
writing for the scene.
Yeah, this is
And
true.
their titles alone were able to do that. So it's one of those things where, yeah, it definitely pops up. Like, sometimes it's like a little weird when it's your own, but most of the time it's like, you have that person going through the breakup and you want to like drop that line where it's we're like, I remember in 2007 when this was like the line that you put in your away message, like, and like when you did like the capital and lowercase letters, or you did like the black background where they had to highlight it.
They had to highlight it.
There's
Yeah.
like
The
you did
highlight
little-
move. That was the sickest thing. Or you put like,
I miss those days.
that one comment that was like a little bit like on the edge where your friends had to like check with your mom and be like,
Are you okay?
so and so all right? And you're like, no, it's
Yeah.
just a lyric to a song, and like,
Song,
it's
yeah.
fun. But yeah, it definitely does come up quite.
I love that. Yeah.
Is that an
that's
Absolute
great.
Punk? Is that the deck behind you? Is that the Absolute Punk logo? I've been like trying to like peek behind your head the
No,
last 2
no,
days.
no.
No, never mind.
It's-
Okay, close.
It's who is it? Sky Brown. She is a female pro skateboarder. She's British Japanese. And I just kind of like I just dug what she stood for, and I was looking for a skate deck that like wasn't like over the top obnoxious.
You didn't want the
that-
World Industry Sport up there, yeah.
Yeah, like, and this one just kind of like looked, but I get the whole Absolute Punk vibe.
I saw the corner of it after
For
that. I was like,
sure.
wait, was that
Yeah.
the old? Well, yeah, Music Men's Broken Hearts over there, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Shout out Jason Tate, Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, right? Chorus.fm or something now, I think
Ain't
it
the
is.
same.
It
Ain't the
is.
same.
It's
It's
not
not
the
the fucking
same.
same. It's not the same. My heart's
No,
gone.
it's just feels so corporate and just all
Just
so
Vanity Fair
generic.
shit. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Well, Dan, before we get off here, where can people find you if they want to learn more about what you do and how to get a hold of you and everything like that?
I'm most active now on Instagram based on like some fun posts that reached a lot of people that kind of like
Yeah.
You like your posts on Instagram?
drove me into like the touring industry full on, and kind of like hoping to make that like more of the route. So yeah, I think it's Daniel Rinaldi LMHC. Daniel Rinaldi LMHC is the biggest way, and from there you can find my website, which is danielrinaldilmhc.com. But yeah, Instagram, like if you hit me up there, I'll answer you in 5 minutes. So
Nice.
that's just how that works. And I put a ton of content up, so there might be something for you on there. I talk a lot about inner child. I talk a lot about anxiety, depression, relationship stuff. There's a whole lot of good stuff on there. So if you're on there, feel free to say hi. Feel free to ask questions about the content, or feel free to ask hey, I wish you were talking about this. Let's I'm
All right. Let's think about it then. Yeah. Let's maybe
Yeah,
talk about
let's
that.
do it.
Thanks for the advice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is this
I love it.
hour? Are you billing us for this hour right now? Are we being
Oh,
billed?
that's
Is
a
this
good
is this a
question.
session? Yeah.
If you'd like to be billed, I can send you a bill.
Send it on over. It's gonna go delinquent, but send it on over on principle. Yeah.
You can't bleed a stone. It's signed.
Yeah.
But
That's great.
no, definitely not. Especially like I love doing this. I love the
Funny.
platform that you both have created here. I think it's so important to kind of just like talk and have all of the people who came up like us feel seen now, especially because a lot of us are 30s, 40s, that are still the same lost person that is still looking for the community and the connection. And the fact that things like you all exist is wonderful. It gives people something to listen to, something to grab onto when they need it. So it's, I talk a lot with my clients about find your anchors. And I think that's what you guys are building here, which is awesome, is an anchor for people. So bravo to you
Yeah.
guys. And thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, brother. No, thank you.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
awesome. That's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching or listening today. And we will
Go to
talk to everyone
therapy.
soon. And go to therapy, please.
Go to therapy. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is really great. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you, man. Thank you.